Is March 24th, 2016, and this is my part of my presentation for my Clemente class. So much information. It's quite voluminous. Always, I want to say thank you to Dr. Coley for all of her considerations. I don't know what the duration for these projects are. I'm going to try to keep it at like 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 9 people. Okay, I'll try to keep it shorter than that. Anyway, this is a very compelling scene.
Diceste questa sera le vostre pregi. Perché? A fretta uccidere non voglio l'anima tua. Uccidere pensa tuoi peccati. Peccato l'amore. Perciò tu vuoi che te mi uccidi. Amitasio! Oh, sonnare mio! Quel fazzoletto Dio ti donai desti. Vero? Nella somalla vini. Io non sono. Confessa! Giuro! Vado lo spergiuro! Confessa brava! Qui vengo! E ritorni! Muto e per sempre!
Have mercy. Let me live just tonight. Ultimately, we're all going to leave this earth. But and the fact that happens, and the fact that these people aren't real, these people are fictional, it does not reduce the emotion of the words and the emotion of a jealous monster. This has entered the culture of the world as far as what you can expect from a black man if you are a white woman. Did you ever wonder if Iago had something to do with Desdemona's death? It would just be sequential in the fact of the fact of how deceptive Iago was. I'm real. I've lived the life of a Moor who has loved the Desdemonas that have entered my life. But it's not. I refuse to be consumed. I have not been consumed by love.
the Othello myth is this. The story of Othello was written by William Shakespeare. It's a tragedy about a black man, an African, who they called Moors at the time. He's a Moor. He was a Moorish general in a Venetian army over in Italy. And he had a relationship with a European white woman named Desdemona. Now let's go back. The story of Othello comes from another story called A Moorish Captain, written by an Italian poet named Cinthio in the 1500s. Now why is this significant? Because again, after the 1400s, they had something called the Inquisition, where they were getting the Moors out of power in certain parts of Europe. In 1492, they got the Moors out of power in Spain. They got all the Moors out of power. And you did have Moors in places like Italy, Sicily. You had them all over. And they were still getting the Moors out of power in some of those areas too. And again, whenever you hear the word Moor, you're talking about an African. We're talking about black folks. And again, they had all these stories talking about...
I don't want to attach black and white to these characters, and you'll find that that is the case. In a lot of cases, I believe that Moors, or people of all hues, tones, textures, and varieties, were indigenous to the continent of America. I don't believe that all the people of color were brought here by like the omnipotent.
Harm black people, because if a white woman wanted a black man, he must have drugged her. And we see that in the Othello story. And later on in the Othello story, he ended up killing Desdemona. And that's another thing that the white supremacists to this day, they tell white women, if you date a black man, he's going to end up killing you. That's what happened with the whole O.J. Simpson thing. That's why they were so hell-bent on getting O.J., because that was like the Othello story. And on a side note, the name Othello, during the 60s and 70s, if you look at the FBI files, there was an informant, because the FBI, they didn't have a lot of black informants at the time and agents. And they had a black informant named Dothard Perry, and his code name in the FBI files was Othello. If you look at the FBI files and you see from the 1960s and early 70s, and if you see the name Othello pop up, they're talking about a dude named Dothard Perry. So again, Othello, it's almost synonymous with black. When you look at the movies about Othello or the stage plays, they always use a black man to play Othello. But I digress as far as that. But let's go to modern times. Even now, the white supremacists like to use that whole myth of black men drugging white women and making them do things. Just like with pimps. I was talking about pimps earlier. When in the early 1900s, when we started to see a lot of pimps pop up in the United States.
Okay, I don't want this video to be too long, because I realize this is a presentation, but I'm trying to illustrate my point. Is that my experience, and I'm going to try to introduce this into my play. I mean, my paper is that a black man is not meant to love. A black man is not meant to have love. I mean, what I want to write on is just so many different things, but William Shakespeare, he wrote this. I don't know I don't even know if he existed. I know that I exist. I know that my words are more tangible, and my being is more tangible than Othello because I exist. Othello was a fictional character, but he was, I think, not a good person because he was a military man and he killed people, including Desdemona in the story, the fictional story. But in reality, I have been cursed by Othello. Othello was written during the Renaissance, which is a rebirth, awakening. Renaissance means rebirth. Historians use the term to refer to the period between the 15th and early 17th centuries when Europe was influenced by a rebirth of interest in Greek and Latin learning. So, you know, I'm not emotional about the story or Othello. However, I have felt the heel of the myth of the black man and the white woman. Um, I had a very young girlfriend when I was in my 40s. I'm 56 right now. I'm gonna close out this video with. I'm gonna close out this with something that's recent. A renewed Desdemona. This is a play that I'm in, and I'm dancing with a nice young lady who could be Desdemona. Easily. This is her. That's me. As you're going to see here, that's me, that's her. She's going to tell me, she's going to point very emphatically what to do to get into the right spot. I could never imagine suffocating her or breaking her neck. But Iago could. This is the play from the Clemente course, which is what this presentation is for. I'm realizing time is of the essence, but there is so much information about this story, The War of Venice by William Shakespeare. And noble, he was not noble. He killed. He was his ancient Rodrigo, a Venetian gentleman. None of these people are nice people except for Desdemona. So my story, my paper is going to be about modern times as the curse of Othello, who wasn't real, but it lived under his tyranny as a Moor, as a black man, as a African American, as just Robert Jenkins. I'm not a fictional character, but I have uh, been Othello. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for your time. Good night.